Yeah, so I put up the practice from last week, the restorative part two, and we'll kind of stay with the theme of, learning to relax because I think that's a little bit of what we were doing last week. Not that you guys necessarily need to learn to relax, but generally that's most of us could do with being a bit better at it, especially, yeah, anyway, that's we won't go into the especiallys, but learning to relax, very, very important skill. And for our long-term well-being, it's a very important skill, I really think. Um, Back in the day, I, we used to hear these stories of, you know, women particularly being prescribed smoking by the doctors, back in the 60s, back in the 70s, or whenever it was then, because it was a way of getting women to sit down, especially those that just wouldn't stop and wouldn't sit still. And it gave them something to do. It was like, yeah, you stop, you have this break. This was before they really understood that it was very, very bad for you. Now that's changed. We've swapped cigarettes for these things, for mobile phones, and instead of sitting there with a cigarette in our hand, we sit there with a phone in our hands and pretend that that's us chilling out when actually that's rubbish. It's a load of nonsense because we're stimulating ourselves. And I know this doesn't apply to all of you, but I know that I can be very guilty of that, of sitting down watching a TV show and then being like, oh, I must reply to that message. Oh, an email has come in. Oh, I must attend to that. When actually that's the complete opposite of what we need and what we should be doing. And so therefore, when we have a class situation and setup like this, where you have put away the distractions, where you turn down the lights, where you set aside the time for this practice, very, very important for our mental health as well as our physical, and I'd say, your spiritual health as well, because it just gives you that chance to be peaceful and to connect with back into what's important. Okay, so like I said, we'll begin with some breathing, very similar to the breathing that we've been doing in the two classes that we've had already this evening. And in a moment, I am going to put the headphones in so that you can hear me a little bit more clearly when I move over onto my mat. So, breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 8. Very simple, brilliant restorative style breath. Great for calming the body and the nervous system. So you are breathing in for 4 and breathing out for 8. And you're going to keep going with this for a couple of minutes while I get my headphones on, and it's going to change the sound, of course. So headphones are on, and I'm probably going to sound a little bit loud now, so maybe in a minute you might want to turn yourself or turn me down a little. I'll try and speak as calmly and as peacefully as possible. Or maybe not, maybe need to turn me up, I don't know. Okay, so you're still breathing, and you're breathing in for 4, and you're breathing out for 8. Nice and simple. In for a slow count of 4, and out for a smooth, steady count of 8.
And then can you take one more breath as you are? And let your breathing return to its own pace. Checking in with yourself. Sometimes when we practice in a class situation, it might be that the person giving the lesson tells you to stop and you're not quite ready. I want you to register whether that's the case for you. It might be particular to this occasion. You might need a little bit longer. And if that is indeed the case for you, then I want you to come back to this breath, because you can practice it in all of the poses tonight that we're going to practice. Checking in is very important, always. And the breath is a good way to do that. The breath is a good guide. If we're able to breathe, even for the 4-8 breaths, and we're able to do that with ease, then we know we're working at a pretty good pace, or we're doing a breath style that is suitable for our body and our kind of mood for this evening or for this moment in time. All right, so we're going to come into our first yin pose, and you can do this completely prop free. You're going to roll onto your tummy, and you're going to prop yourself up onto your forearms. And we'll take a little bit of Sphinx pose, but maybe when we arrive, you just start by wriggling or shaking your hips from side to side like this. Just making or taking out any of the sedentariness of being on your back or being in one position for the breath for a moment. And then slow that down until you come to a stop. And I'd like you to relax your legs. And notice whether you are feeling a bit too high up. If you are, you move your forearms a little bit further away and you lower yourself closer to the ground. Remember that just laying on the front of your body, we consider that to be a very mild back bend. So just laying with your head resting on your hands creates a gentle extension through the spine. However, we're going to be here for about 3 minutes. Just going to put my timer on now. And for the last maybe half of the time, I'm going to invite you to come up into a deeper back bend if you want to. A couple of things that you can do to play here is you can play with the position of your feet. So you might want to open your feet wider out to the sides. I quite like this because it targets, for me, quite deep, low into the lower back region where the lumbar vertebra meets the sacrum, the back of the hips, back of the pelvis. You could try taking the legs closer together because that will take the sensation higher up the spine towards the middle of the back. So if you feel you need a bit more stimulation there, you bring the feet closer together. Or one other option that you could explore is bending the knees and just bringing the heels, not too deep, not too forcefully, but just bringing the heels in towards the sit bones. And notice how that changes the definition of the curve of your spine. Okay, so if you want to, you can come up into a seal pose by placing the palms on the floor and straightening the arms. And this is only if you want to make the curve in the back a little deeper, a little stronger. If you've got any tenderness in the lower back in that region, then please avoid this. Go for the gentler option. And remember, you can always, again, play with how wide apart the hands are. The front of the hips don't need to stay on the mat for this one. You can be resting on the front of the thighs. It's been a few weeks since we did some traditional yin. So remember that when we're in these poses, the idea is that we come into them and then we relax. So try to relax the area that you're working. In this case, it's the back of the body, the spine, the muscles in the back of the pelvis, the buttocks, the back of the thighs. And then you're just going to take maybe 2 or 3 more breaths. And slowly making your way down. Just finding a restful place to pause. Feel the tension dropping out of your shoulders, your arms, your upper body. And then slowly taking a look this way, becoming more aware again of the room and of the practice. And we're going to transform our back bend shape into a rounded spine as we fold forwards. So I'm using the bolster, but you don't have to. You can use your just your mat, really. I'm going to use this because I want to cradle my spine. And I kind of feel like I need to soften into something tonight. I'm not striving to get close to the floor. But if you feel that you need to get deeper, if you want to give your hips a little bit more juiciness, then maybe you don't use the bolster tonight. Have the head turned to one side if that's comfortable. And position your arms in a way that allows you to let the back of the body open and round. So not only from top to bottom of the spine, you are rounding into a dome shape, but you're also rounding across the back of your body. And then I'd like you to breathe. Breathe into the back space. Breathe across the back of the lungs. And as you get more soft, remember that we're letting go of any engagement in the muscles. And there's a contrast between this pose and the previous one. The previous one really stimulated the back of the body. It scrunched it up, shortened the distance, the space, the length. And now you're doing quite the opposite. You are lengthening. The target is, again, the back of the body. It's still the spine. But now you're relaxing into a completely different form. We're not so much stimulating the front of the body here, although there is stimulation at the front of the hips and into the knee joint, so you can relax these regions too. But primarily you want to find a rounded length from the back of your head all the way down to your tailbone. And to facilitate that, you might use that longer exhalation. Breathing in for 4, breathing out for 8. Okay, you're going to take one more breath. And as you uncurl yourself away from the support of the bolster, please either come to sit and straighten the legs out or lie yourself down. And notice the effects on your spine. So you've taken a back bend, now you've contrasted that with a forward fold. And if you remember to yesterday's practice, we looked at moving the spine in its different ranges, its different desired movement shapes. So you've already covered 2 of them. We're kind of going to do 2.5 with the next pose. So the next pose is going to be a little bit of spinal extension again, repeating, alternating. But we're going to add a little bit of decompression by coming slightly upside down. So I'd like you to come look this way. I'm going to shove my bolster out of the way because you're going to come into quarter dog pose. So quarter dog is a kneeling pose. So if you need to, you put some extra padding underneath the knees. The right arm is going to go forwards towards the end of the mat and the elbow is going to come down to the floor. The left arm goes across and it either becomes a pillow for your forehead to rest on, or you can rest your forehead behind it or in front of it, however you feel. But the idea here is that you keep your bottom in the air, you lower the head down, so you've got mild stimulation along the length of one arm and down the side of the body. You've got a little bit of a back bend going on. You've got a little bit of upside down. So there's a little bit of opportunity to create some space in your spine just by kind of hanging forwards. Now, obviously, if you don't like this pose and this particular way of having your knees underneath you, then you could lay on your back. You could put the prop underneath your hips, your head and your shoulders on the floor, and you could do a supported back bend that way round and take one arm alongside your ear for good measure. However, we're going to hang out in a quarter, this is called a quarter dog, and we'll do the other arm in just a moment. If you don't like a particular arm, then just stick with one or the other. And if your shoulders feel tight or it feels too low for your head to be that close to the ground, then put a blanket or your block or bolster underneath your upper body or your forehead to give you a little bit more elevation. What I like here is if you can try to keep the arm that's extended, try to keep your elbow on the floor. So you're not stretching your arm out straight, you're not trying to over lengthen the arm, and therefore it doesn't get too tiring for the elbow. You're going to stay here for 1 more minute, so it's not such a long time. If you need to come out of the pose sooner, you can sink back into child's pose. So taking 1 more breath here. And if you're happy to, you can simply switch the arms over, or you give yourself a little breather, a little break for a moment, and then you come into the pose when you're ready. So Joe, are you comfortable with your shoulder like that? Is that okay? No. Just do this with your arm, and then the other arm goes like that. So rather than it do it, yeah. So it's like a, yeah, is that okay? And then stretch your right arm to the tip of the mat. Oh, you're using that one as a pillow, are you? Which I can't see you because you're just a tiny bit. Which, yeah, your right arm is your pillow. Okay, and your left arm is forwards. Yeah. So try and put your elbow on the floor and then let your heart drop towards the ground as well. You might just have your forehead resting onto your arm, but you're trying to soften the upper body. This is a quarter dog pose, is a gentle stimulating pose for the heart and for the lungs. And it teaches us to surrender, because that's when we come into this art of relaxing, learning to relax, that's really what we're doing, isn't it? We're choosing just to let go, to give up the doing, the trying, the efforting. Remember, if you need to rest, just come back into child's pose and offer yourself a little bit of a break. Okay, so finish your last breath here and then slowly release and maybe come off of your knees. Straighten out the legs. You can lay on your front, you can lay on your back, you can sit and stretch the legs out straight, whatever feels right. Sometimes when we've had to hold ourselves, as you have for the quarter dog poses, sometimes it's just nice to lie down and just to completely relax the shoulders for a bit. Now, upper body poses can be quite stimulating for the nervous system. And so therefore, if you feel you've been, you know, given a little injection of energy and you want to calm that down, then go back to the 4-8 breath. Okay, so one more resting breath here. And then we're coming into an upside down forward fold. So we're going to come into bamboo garden. You can do this in the middle of your mat by rolling the bolster up underneath the hips, making sure that your head and your shoulders now feel supported. So we've gone the other way. You had your head, your face, head, shoulders, arms down on the ground, the other way up. And now we're doing it this way. So if you don't want to take your legs up in the air and just hang them like this, then use the wall if you have one, or use some furniture. You could just sit with your bottom against the sofa and bend your knees and put your calves onto the seat of the sofa, for instance. You look a little bit like this. You can have the bolster or not have the bolster, that's up to you. But both legs up in the air, arms wherever you would like them to be. And just feel the weight of the legs pouring down into the back of the hips and the pelvis. Make sure that you find the sweet spot that allows you to have your legs up effortlessly. And return to the 4-8 breaths. Imagining that with every exhalation, this slow trickle runs down the length of each leg into the back of the hips, into the ground. We're going to stay for one more minute. If 1 minute sounds too long, please bring your feet down to the floor and rest. And then slowly think about bringing the knees towards the chest. And pushing the bolster away and letting the legs rest on the bolster. Okay. So then we move to reclining butterfly. So come over to one side and set your bolster up. Unless, of course, you don't want the back bend or the depth of the back bend. Because if you would prefer to, you can just lie flat on the floor and have the knees open out to the sides and maybe take the arms around the top of the head like this. And you can do a very mild back bend that way. So if you feel that you've had enough stimulation into that part of the body, then switch it up a little bit. If you're using the bolster, it doesn't have to be flat like mine is. You can prop it up with the blocks underneath, or you could use a pillow for the back of your head if you feel that your head is too sort of low down beneath you. Now we're going to stay in this pose. We're going to do the back bend version of it for a few minutes, and then we're going to fold forwards in the kind of more traditional butterfly. And so, yeah, be prepped for that. You might want to have something underneath the knees to hold them, or you can just let the weight of the legs drop towards the ground and encourage the inner thighs to lengthen. The hips to relax. And here might be a place to return to those 4-8 breaths if you found them useful. Each pose presents a different opportunity to practice the same breath. And each pose gives you different sensations, different restrictions, if you want to call it that, with the shape of your spine. Don't rush the breath, especially the exhale. Keep it as smooth and as steady and as calm as the inhale. Okay, so taking a last breath here in this particular variation. And then using your hands to gently lift yourself up. And we're going straight into the next version. So you might keep your feet close into you as you had for the reclining, or you could take your feet a little bit further away. You don't have to have the soles of the feet together. There can be a gap between them. You could even have your legs more open out to the sides. If you feel more comfortable in your hips doing that, then please do. But now we're folding forwards and we're rounding the back of the body again. Let the chin fall towards the chest. And take your focus higher up the spine to the shoulders and the back of the neck. Letting your head be really heavy gives the muscles along the back line of your neck the chance to lengthen properly, to reach the full capacity of their stretch. And feeling your way into letting go of the weight of your head. And enjoying the rippling effect along your spine of what that stretch feels like. And you completely surrender. Take 2 more breaths here, please. And then, because you have been moving, particularly the neck, you must come up very, very slowly and carefully. And gently return to an upright position before moving out of the way, the props that might be behind you, and easing yourself very slowly and gently down, because you've gone from a back bend to a forward back fold with no respite in between. And so now what you want to do is just lay yourself onto the ground. Your body might feel a little bit tight, maybe a little bit spasmy in some of those muscles. And so what you do is you take very, very slow and soft movements. Perhaps with the head, rocking the nose from side to side, keeping the shoulders relaxed. Or coming back to a centered place where you can bring your body into a short shavasana shape. And just like after practice yesterday, I wanted you to focus on the energy along your spine. Begin by softening into the ground, letting your head become extremely heavy, relaxing your throat and your shoulders, having your arms resting heavily. Let the front of the pelvis soften, the legs to feel long. What do you notice happening along your spine right now? What can you see if you picture it? What can you feel within? Okay, so I'd like you to begin to bring your awareness back into the space that we're in. Invite a deeper breath in, a long, slow breath out. Have a wiggle of fingers and of toes. Little roll of the head from side to side. And a lengthen stretch along your body if that feels good. Maybe roll your knees from side to side if you want to. Before bringing knees in and taking a roll over to one side so you can come up into a seated position. Welcome back. Let's finish tonight's practice together. Fingertips out to the sides. On an inhalation, raise both hands up towards the ceiling, palms meeting. Hands drifting down through the center line towards your heart. Thank you so much for coming together to practice tonight. Very well done. Namaste to you all, and have a very lovely, very peaceful rest of the evening.